Chief Justice Raymond Zondo will today swear in President-elect Cyril Ramaphosa for his second term in office as the President of South Africa. Ramaphosa first became President of the country following the resignation of former President Jacob Zuma in February 2018. This will be the country's seventh presidential inauguration since the first democratically elected President Nelson Mandela took oath of office on the 10th of May, 1994. To talk more about today's ceremony and the role of the South African National Defence in it all, and just basically the significance of this entire day, we're joined by Professor Anthoni Van Nieuwkerk, who is the Professor of International and Diplomacy Studies at the Thabo Mbeki Africa School of Public and International Affairs at UNISA. So nice to have you in studio. Welcome.
Thank you. Good morning.
So we talk about 1994. You were telling me a story of how you were there at that inauguration. I mean, here you are talking to us about the next one. But perhaps you could take us back to those moments of 1994 and where we sit now as a nation.
Yeah, if you think of the Union buildings, it's one of the pictures behind us. It's so symbolic of the country's national power. Whoever occupies the Union buildings really sits at the heart of political power. So whoever that person is very significant. In 1994, it was Nelson Mandela, and it was a global event because it was the moment when he was inaugurated. He represented the new South Africa, the new democracy. Yeah. And it was a transition from apartheid. In fact, de Klerk was there, witnessing the handover symbolically of political, maybe not economic, but political power from the old to the new regime. It was very powerful. I was very glad to be there. The world attended, from Yasser Arafat to Fidel Castro, to the Americans, to the Europeans, to the Asians. It was to all of our African leaders as well. It was a fantastic moment. In fact, we squeezed, for space. The American Civil Secret Service watched us with an eagle eye because their VIPs arrived. Yeah. And maybe this is the point I want to make. I get a sense that this event today is a little bit scaled down. We don't have the world's attention the way that Nelson Mandela was able to pull together the crowds then. So it's slightly different now. I'm watching the aeroplanes landing. You can't see exactly who's arriving, but I have a sense that our neighbors are all here, which is really important. Because South Africa and the SADC region needs to work together to promote stability and democracy. I think the rest of Africa also has a kind of high-level representation, regional communities, whoever heads up the AU and so on. But I'm curious about the Europeans, and I'm also curious about the Americans.
There certainly is a very high representation. I mean, we've been watching them arriving since the early hours of yesterday through the whole night and the day. And a lot of them certainly are from the African continent. But I think what we were told is obviously there are those that are working here in South Africa. They're ministers that are represented and, consul generals or ambassadors or whatever the case may be, and they will be in attendance. Is that good enough? Should we not be seeing a lot more presidents attending? And I'm not just talking about African presidents, because that is vital that we have the African buy-in to this. But internationally?
No, I mean, Leanne, there's a point here to be made. It may be slightly controversial. Because of the changing world in which we live, the decline of the influence of the West and the rise of the East, Africa has become sought after. Do we join the East or do we join the West? We've got lots of votes in the United Nations. Africa is sought after as a source of natural resources. We've got a huge population. People want, for Africa to align either side. So at this inauguration of the president of the strongest economy in Africa, if the West wants us to align towards it, you would expect a high-level delegation from, let's say, the Americans or the Europeans. I'm waiting to see who actually will sit in the seat. Because that will send a message that, South Africa, we want to work with you. The same would go with the East, our BRICS compatriots or our alliance partners. I'm keen to see the level of Russian and Chinese representation. So we know Putin can't come. And probably the Chinese president is too busy to do that. But high-level representation is symbolic of the power relationship between South Africa, the East and the West.
So I'll give you the list. I've just asked our team to send it through. So here's a list of some of the presidents that have arrived, that will be in attendance, as they're saying. The Kingdom of Eswatini, of course, will be here. Kingdom of Lesotho, the president. Of Congo, the president. South Sudan, the Republic of Mozambique, Angola's president, Zimbabwean president, the DRC president, Mauritius, Nigeria, Tanzania, Namibia, Cuba, the vice president in attendance, vice president of Seychelles, Cote d'Ivoire, the vice president, Uganda, the vice president, Burundi, prime minister, and then Nigeria, Uganda, Zambia, Republic of Malawi. Brazil is the minister of racial equity. People's Republic of China, they're sending a special envoy, and the Southern African Development Community, the executive secretary. That's a list of arrivals and dignitaries that we know of that have arrived in the country. Is that good enough for you?
It's a nice list. It's very African. I like it. It's good. It's correct. But there are some missing elements there, the way that we're discussing it now.
Yeah, indeed.
I'm glad that the Brazilians have a presence, the Chinese have a presence. I didn't know about the Russians. There's nothing on your list.
Didn't read anything there, no.
And where are the Europeans?
Is that something to be concerned about? Because, we obviously as a country, we're going through something very different. We keep on drawing a parallel between the GNU of '94 and the GNU of 2024. But in essence, they're very, very different.
It's not the same thing.
The background to this is massively different.
Correct.
The ANC do not have a majority. They have to enter into this. We don't know how this is going to work. Already you're hearing a lot of fighting in the background. And, no, we didn't say that, but you didn't say that. You and I, should we be reading what this agreement is all about? Should we know and be privy to this agreement that's been signed? Because in essence, that's our future.
So, Leanne, that's a technical document, which I have read, and I'm sure analysts and commentators and journalists have done their work. That document is open to interpretation. I was listening to Helen Zille last night, arguing with Fikile Mbalula about how to understand the 60%. It tells me that the machinery of co-governance has not been settled or worked out yet. And in fact, let me say this. As they try to find each other in this new terrain, what will the glue or the vehicle that will help us to find each other is not this. It is the proposed national dialogue, which is going to be a much broader instrument or platform to bring South Africans together. Remember, this GNU consists of politicians who are all fighting for their own positions, and everybody's waiting for the announcement, who's the minister of this and that.
Yes.
So there's your political class. This is how they behave. It's in their DNA. As South Africans, we want something else. Can these politicians solve our poverty and inequality problems? Or should we really cohere, as the National Development Plan says, build social cohesion and work together as a nation? To do that, we need this national dialogue. Now, who's going to drive this national dialogue? It's written into the agreement between the GNU partners. But again, my point is we don't want politicians to dominate and domineer all of our future. There's a role for civil society. There's a role for academia. There's a role for the private sector. There's a role for those who work on the ground with poor people in townships and in shuttles. So in shacks. So I think there is the next move that we're eagerly awaiting.
Let me ask you about this, and we're heading into almost news time. So I don't want to talk too much about the actual ceremony and the swearing in, because I think we're going to get so much of that as the broadcast gets underway, and we're going to watch that live from 11 o'clock. What should we as South Africans be looking out for in that audience? Because obviously we're seeing dignitaries arriving, we're seeing the political party heads arriving, we're seeing the citizens of the country on the lawns outside the union buildings. But there's got to be a sense of what we should be looking for in that crowd, because it's a different moment in our history.
3 things.
Good.
I'll be looking for.
Okay.
I wonder about your 3 things. My 3 is the presence of the military is quite important. So the Defence Force, the march, the display, the overhead flights, the aeroplanes, the gun salute, and so on. It is symbolic of our military saying we subject ourselves to the authority of a civilian president. In political terms, it's very important to understand that power relationship. Our military agrees that it is directed by our commander-in-chief, which is a civilian, an elected president by the people. That's the first point. So there's pomp and circumstance. They march in order, lots of noise. It's impressive for many people, this display of military might.
Yeah.
Every nation in the world does it. Every democracy, shows off. It also shows the world what we have. We don't tell them about the funding problems with the Defence Force and so on. This is the day where we show how strong we are. The second thing is we need to see what the president's going to say in his acceptance speech.
Yes, yes.
I hope he doesn't draw it out. I'm sure he's going to be to the point. And the difference between the 94 inaugural Nelson Mandela saying to the world, we have arrived, and what is happening today is Cyril Ramaphosa will have to say, we are back, but we have to share power for the first time in 30 years. So the words that he chooses, I hope, is going to bring us together as a nation instead of, reinforcing divisions.
Yeah.
The third thing, on a lighter note, is people dress up, like the opening of Parliament. I'm going to watch how people dress up, and it's very colorful. It's also awkward sometimes.
I didn't think that would be something you'd be looking out for. I really didn't. But now that you've told me, I'm also going to look to see what they're wearing. But for me, I am looking for that message. I'm looking for that message of unity.
Correct.
We've been hearing the message of unity for so many years, but this is a different kind of unity. And it's a unity where I think we need buy-in from the people of South Africa to accept that we may have voted one way, but our vote has gone in a very different form. But it'll be interesting to see how the president pulls us all together, because this is a very, very important moment. The significance, and let's just wrap this up very quickly, the significance of our Chief Justice being there, because obviously the Justice is going to be swearing in. We've seen we did a wonderful package earlier where we saw all of the past Chief Justices, some alive, some are not with us anymore.
Yes.
But the role that they play in all of this.
Yeah, very important. Also, it's symbolic of this division of power that we have that is driving our democracy. There's the politicians, there's the judiciary and the legislature. And the role of the judiciary and the Constitutional Court is so important in protecting the gains of democracy. So having the Chief Justice, I think Moseneke was in 1994 with Mandela. Now it's Zondo with Cyril Ramaphosa. It's important. I know people are cynical about the role of judges, but I am not. I think him representing the judiciary is symbolic of how strong our democracy is.
It certainly is. So if we go back on that list, it was Arthur Chaskalson, 94 to 2005, and then Pius Langer, the late Pius Langer as well, up to 1994 to 2009. Then Chief Justice Andile Ngobo, 99 until 2011. Chief Justice Mogoeng, 2009 to 2011. And of course, now we see our Chief Justice Raymond Zondo taking up and swearing in Cyril Ramaphosa on that one. Then, of course, we wait for the announcement of ministers. How long does the president have, as my final closing note to you? Because I think that's what people want to know.
There's a lot of pressure on him to declare. He has to consult very widely. He might even have to enlarge the cabinet a little bit. To accommodate all these. Listen, this is a government of national unity. Parties are still signing up the PAC. I mean, I can't. So this thing is still evolving as we speak.
Yeah.
He might have to take a few days. But I mean, the critical positions, portfolios, finance, justice, foreign affairs, home affairs, we are all eagerly waiting, because that is going to give you the answer to the question that you and I have. What is the real balance of power in the government of national unity?
All right, let's leave it there. Professor, thank you for joining us here on the program. Professor of International and Diplomacy Studies at the Thabo Mbeki African School of Public and International Affairs at UNISA. Anthoni, talking to us here. Professor Anthoni, thank you very, very much for joining us.